Hi everyone, it's Nicole and welcome back to my channel. Today I am kicking off Stamp-tember with this layout for Clique International. Today I have a couple products on my desk that I am working with. One is a Flora and Fauna stamp set called Build a Butterfly, and it has a couple coordinating dies that also come with it. The three pieces that I showed there, the Build a Butterfly stamp set, the butterfly three-piece dies, and then there's another one with two flowers, a leaf, and then there's also another stamp set that I don't show in this video. All four of those come in one kit over on the Clique website. Also, I am working with the Kaiser Art ink pad set. Those are the inks that you can see up at the top of my screen there. It's a set of 12 ink pads. They are pigment ink, so that means it's going to be ink that lays on the surface of your paper as opposed to being absorbed in by like dye inks do. It is Those type of inks are really good for double stamping images like this. And as I go through this, I'm going to stamp out some of the bigger butterflies so that you can see it. It's easier to see on screen. I'm actually not going to use any of these larger ones. I'm going to use some smaller ones. I just wanted to stamp this out to show you that the variation that you can get with the larger ones versus the smaller ones that I actually use. But the pigment inks in this set, there are 12 ink pads total. There are quite a few of them that can pair together with lighter and darker tone-on-tone color stamping like I'm doing here. Pigment ink is nicer because, like I said, it does lay on top of each other as opposed to being absorbed into the papers. That makes for a nice double imprint like this. It does take a little bit longer to dry, so it's always best to either let this sit and dry before you try to die cut them, or hit them with your heat tool real quick to speed up that drying process. So the inks that I'm using here are a darker yellow and lighter yellow in the kit. I actually go for, in my project today, a primary color layout. I love these dies. I love the stamp sets, but I find that I don't really create a lot of very feminine layouts. I am more of a bold color, bold pattern design project creator. I don't know if it's the fact that I just have boys and I always document boys or what it is, but I went for primary colored butterflies, as you can see here. I used red, yellow, blue. And for the butterfly little bodies and the details on their wings, I used the black that was in that 12-piece kit. It I'm trying to read the name on it, and I don't even think I can pronounce it. Charbonneau. It's like a charcoal black, but it's not 100% pure black. It's like a really, 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 really dark gray, and I really like it because it's not so striking. So I went ahead and I stamped out quite a few butterflies. I think it turned out to be 3 blue, 3 yellow, and 6 red, but I only ended up using 5 red, I think it was. So I stamped the whole thing out, just assembly line style. I completely skipped over that because it was the same thing over and over again. And then I took the matching die, which was the medium butterfly in that set, and pulled out my Big Shot and just started cutting away. I cut out every single one of those butterflies. It wasn't 100% perfect, and that's because I probably should have die cut first, stamped second, but I don't work that way in my mind. So I stamped first and die cutted second, and then it showed some white space, and I'm totally fine with that. That doesn't bother me whatsoever. So once all of those were cut out, I took some time and did a lot of mixed media on my background, and I really super sped this part up, or else this video would have probably been a half hour. What I did was, first off, I gessoed my paper. I did not show that here, but please make sure that if you're going to do a background technique that involves any type of paint, watercolor, or any other media that you want to be easily moved with water or smudging, you're going to need to use gesso. So that's what I prepped my page with. I believe I prepped it with clear, just because that was the clear gesso, just because that's what was sitting on my desk. But when you have a white paper background, it doesn't matter if you use clear or white. It's going to be the same. When it matters is when you're using your pattern papers. If you want your pattern paper to show through and you don't want it toned down, that's when you really need to use the clear. So anywho, I went through and used the same red, yellow, blue inks that I used for my stamping. So those same cube inks, I went through and did a little bit of dragging on my paper that was prepped with gesso and dried. And I drug it a little bit with a stamp pad. I hit it with a brush and watered it down a bit, and I dried it. I dried every single layer in between every layer, because if you don't, because you're working with primary colors, they're going to mix, and then you're going to create orange and green, and I really didn't want those colors. I wanted just red and blue with a little bit of yellow, because that's the main colors in the photo that I'm using. Now, it could have mixed green, which eventually I'm going to put some green leaves in here, so that doesn't bother me, but I definitely did not want any orange. So I started with the dragging of the ink pad, took some water and my paintbrush to it, and dried it. And then the next step, I took the same ink pad, smushed it on some clear packaging, took my brush with some water to it to wet it, and then I did the packaging technique, and then I dried it. I really wasn't very particular whenever I did the packaging part of it. In fact, I really wasn't particular the whole thing. I just wanted to make sure that I got the fluid motion of of where I was going to put the butterflies, because I knew a lot of this was going to be covered up anyways. And then I do end up actually going back in and adding a little bit more of the splatters later on. I did some things off camera at the very end, because when I walked away and I come back, I always feel like I can add more, and this was one of those. So anyways, after the second layer of packaging technique, I again dried it with my heat tool. And then lastly, I came in, as you can see here, put some more ink on my plastic, and I splattered it for the final layer, and then hit it with my heat tool. Again, that was really super sped up. I apologize. Otherwise, this video, like I said, would have been, I think it was 33 minutes, and 15 right now is long enough for me. My attention span cuts off at 15. So I went through my stash and I pulled out some colored cardstock. This is from the Clique Chromatics. They have a line of solid colored cardstock in the shop that you can add on to any of your kits. I have a package of them. I believe I had two sets of them, so I pulled some of these. I'm not sure which sets they came from, but I pulled these basics from those sets. I pulled out the red, the yellow, the blue, just to match my butterflies. I first backed my photo up with all 3 layers of those colors to help draw the eye towards the center of the photo. I did tear the initial edge of my blue to give it that rugged bottom. I like the clean edges, but sometimes a layout, when it's messy like this one, just calls for rough edges, and I thought that this was the perfect time. I apologize, my air conditioner just kicked on, so you're probably going to hear that. So after the blue messy edge, I went in with the yellow, and I cut all 3 of those. I like yellow, but I'm not a huge fan of yellow, so if the yellow messy edge didn't show, I really wasn't heartbroken. And then finally for the red, I did the same as I did for the blue. I tore that bottom edge just so that that bottom red piece you'll see eventually will peek through underneath that blue torn. So I went through, added all 3 of those layers, added some foam on the back of it with some craft foam. It's single-sided adhesive that I picked up from Walmart, and added that as a little layer to lift it, because when I glue all of this down, my butterflies, I'm only going to glue in the center of the bodies. I'm not going to glue the wings down. There's going to be a lot of dimension on this, so I wanted my picture to pop up a little bit. So now I'm going back in, laying down all of the butterflies on how I would want them to be, and I'm going to take the time and glue them all in. If you look off to the right of my layout, you'll see that I also took the time off camera and die cut a load of those flowers and the leaves. And I didn't realize that the die was only just like that little outline sketchy part of the flower, and I fell in love with it that much more once I cut them. I thought that the leaves were or the flower petals were going to be solid, and that I wasn't going to see any of the mixed media background on this. And then, boom, it was perfect. Like, a lot of my mixed media surprisingly showed up, and I was really happy. So these are a definite win-win in my book, on these dies, just because of how they cut just that outline. It's perfect. So I'm going to go through. I'm going to glue down probably about a 50-50. I'm going to glue down some of the flowers. The other bits of flowers I'm going to pop up on foam adhesive. And then I go through and just tuck in those green leaves in just random places, just making sure that I keep it balanced the whole way throughout the layout. It really didn't matter to me if some were tucked under butterflies, some were tucked under flowers. I was just looking more for an even consistency with color. So after that was done, I thought that it was missing something because the top left was very blank. So I decided to pull out some bits and pieces left over from another Clique kit that I had on my desk. And I found the striped paper in it. And I believe it was an Amy Tan paper. And anyway, I thought that it would look perfect. So I ended up tearing the top left and a very small portion of my bottom right of my layout, ruffled up the edges a little bit, and then I added that striped paper behind those tears, and it made it. It made it for me. There was, like I said, there was just too much white. I know a white is a good thing, but in this case, it just looked like it was empty and forgotten. So that brought something back to those two areas. Now the bottom right, I'm not going to do anything to. I'm just going to leave it with just that little peak of striped colors. But that top left, I'm going to add that red heart too, and then I will also add a couple other embellishments here in just a minute with those enamel dots. I add my title in, which is a die cut that was also sitting on my desk. It says hello. I don't show it in this video, but I do go back in at the very end. You'll see it in the photos at the end, and I use some blue puffy alphas to add the word Easter. So my title for this layout is going to be Hello Easter. My date I added on with a yellow banner from my stash. I want to say it was either an LA Studio or a Studio Calico. I'm not sure. I have these drawers that I keep all my labels in, and they're kind of all mushed together. And I tried separating LA Studio from my other ones because I just love her stuff. But I'm not sure if this is one of those or not. But anyways, it was the perfect matching color yellow. I added my date to that and tucked it in down at the bottom. And glued that down. Everything I do glue down because the gesso makes it very difficult for regular tape to stick to. The only tape that I actually use in this is that double-sided super strong adhesive on the back of my photo, but that will work out just fine. That's a really good double-sided tape. I found that one on Amazon. The roll is really thick, and you get 3 of them for like $6 or $7. Really good value. I will try to see if I can't find that link and put it down below in the description box so you can take a look if that's something you're interested in. So now I'm going to take the time, go through and add enamel dots. I also have another drawer that is loaded with enamel dots. I love enamel dots. I over embellish with enamel dots all the time. Y'all, it's like an addiction. So I found matching red, yellow, blue enamel dots, and I went through and I added those everywhere, especially with the red and the yellow. These ones are a little bit bigger than what I like to use, so I thought, well, this is a great time to use some of the bigger ones, so plop, they went on. So after all of those enamel dots are down, I am going to add just a little bit of journaling on the bottom that just talks a little bit about my picture and about how my son, he tries to be this tough kid by wearing his hockey jersey and playing sports and all that stuff. And then, Easter basket time comes around and he instantly wears the bunny ears and then this bunny sucker, the lollipop he had to have in his mouth. And he just was a ridiculous kid. And it was so funny how he went from complete, like, sports jockey person to softy. I'm an Easter bunny. It was so cute. So I journaled just a little bit about how he had this lollipop that was shaped like a bunny nose, and that was his thing. And even when the lollipop was gone, he had to have it in his mouth because he thought it was hysterical. And then he literally used it and wore it all day long. And the only time he took it out, I think, was to eat or drink or something. So that was what my journaling was about. That is all I have for you today. These two kits are available over in the Clique shop. I will make sure that I link both of those products down below for the stamp kit and the ink kit. Thanks so much for stopping by today. I hope you have fun and got inspired, and I welcome you to join us over on the Clique International Facebook group for some more Stamp-tember inspiration, plus so much more. Thanks so much. Have a great day.